Mark Robinson, CEO of the All Blacks. You have, firstly, welcome to the podcast. It's an honor to be
Thank you.
hosting
Great
you
to be
today.
great to be with you. Yeah.
And you have one of the most looked up to, respected, and important roles in the country of New Zealand. Can you give us a background on how your career in the sport began and where did your passion for sports, first and foremost, and secondly, rugby, begin as it's different from any other person in around the world?
Yeah, I'd love to have a chat about these things, obviously. So I grew up in a tiny little farming community in South Taranaki, which is in the North Island of New Zealand. And all, to be honest, all we had to do was to play sport there. Sport was a big part of our lives growing up. And for me, rugby was the sport I gravitated to at a very young age, and have loved it ever since I picked up a ball for the first time at the age of 4, and have been involved in one way or another over the last 45 odd years as a player, a junior player, through my university and schooling, and then I was fortunate enough to play for the All Blacks myself, obviously, and then on finishing my playing career, ended up back in administration, as well as doing some other things outside of rugby for a while. But I've always had a really natural sort of affinity with the game, a deep love of the game, and a belief that as a sport, it's one of the greatest in the world for, sharing values, for growing teamwork, discipline, and being amazing as an environment for young people to learn and grow. So that's something I'm really passionate about in my role now, even though my role is very broad and diverse. I've always had a core belief of how special our sport is, and the love I've had for it. So, look, I won't transverse all of the past 45 years of involvement, but it's been something I've been very close to all of my life. I've lived in different parts of the world and studied it in different parts of the world because of rugby, and it's afforded me some amazing opportunities as well. So, I'm in a space now as a father of passing that on to my sons who both play the game, and it's something that I'm really pleased to see them having a deep love of the game as well.
Through your leadership, the All Blacks became a symbol of excellence, became the team with the most amount of wins in the history of sports, with an 83% win percentage, the most of any other sports team around the world. So when you're making the strategy to develop the brand of the All Blacks and delivering the strategy, but before you have to sell it to the nation, the country, and also partners who are looking to invest. How do you articulate that vision to the players, the staffs, as well as the fans and partners who are looking to enter the ecosystem to invest in?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the first thing I'd say is that the strategy of New Zealand is a whole of what we call a whole of game strategy. So one pillar in our strategy cannot exist in isolation on its own, and that's true of the success of the All Blacks. The All Blacks need to be successful long term, great experiences and engagement in the community rugby space. They need us to grow as many young rugby players, boys and girls, as we possibly can. We need, because we're such a small country, we need aligned stakeholders who help us deliver the game, to be playing their role in the community game. And as part of doing that, they also help us deliver our high performance pathways, which ultimately provide great competitions and then the pathway into our national teams like the All Blacks and the Black Ferns. So community rugby is really important to the success of the All Blacks, as is the other part of our strategy and the commercial pillar, which is basically about growing as many fans as possible around our country. And especially in more recent times around the world, because we're such a small, isolated country, we need to grow our fan base internationally. So we've worked really hard in recent times in areas like Asia and North America in particular to help to grow the All Blacks brand and provide the commercial growth that we can reinvest, back into the game at what we call grassroots level, which is community level, to keep the cycle of success in our sport going. So, as it relates to the All Blacks, that's probably been the major shift in more recent times is the way that we've thought about the globe differently. Brought on an investment partner in Silver Lake to help us with that journey, to grow our fan base internationally, and we're starting to see some really good success there. We've had significant growth with our commercial base in the last 5 years. At a pretty challenging time for New Zealand economically, notwithstanding the pandemic as well. So there are a lot of good things that we're achieving in that space at the moment, and the All Blacks is still a very revered brand, but it cannot act in isolation. It needs support in other areas to be able to be successful as well. And the role we have is to try and lead that by, as you say, communicating with all of those different groups. Our ecosystem in rugby is very complicated with stakeholders domestically and internationally. And so we're constantly selling the vision about the opportunities we can create internationally for partners, but we have to communicate a lot locally too. And with bodies such as World Rugby, other national unions around the world, our own stakeholders domestically are all part of that community we need to communicate with.
And if commercial success also comes from innovation, is there one particular challenge that's faced with when balancing the tradition of a culture like the one of the All Blacks in New Zealand with innovation?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. And I think in the role I have, um, there are two tensions which are constant for New Zealand rugby and our teams. One is, as you say, preserving the legacy and the history and upholding the traditions of the sport, but also needing to evolve and be more innovative as it relates to connecting with new fans, connecting with players for the future, and with new partners around the world. And the other one, I think, is balancing the tension between being connected really closely to our domestic game and our fans and our players in New Zealand, but also acknowledging, because we're such a small, isolated country, that we need to globalise as a brand and work harder and smarter in different markets around the world. So those are the two things we're sort of juggling every day. And I think there's an acknowledgement in most parts now by our players, by our partners, and by our domestic stakeholders that we do have to evolve and we do have to have a more globally focused strategy as it relates to especially revenue generation.
And when building this community and the asset of your youth development, because it comes from local clubs and also schools. So, are there specific in this last 5 years where you've had a lot of commercial success and growth? Were there specific programs or partnerships that you were most proud of that made a difference also at the community level for your tradition?
I think at the community level, the one thing we've tried really hard to do is to tailor the game more for the participant. So, because New Zealand has had such a strong history in rugby, we didn't always have to evolve and innovate the game on the field, the shape of our game. But over time, with more, changes in community, changes in family life, work-life balance, different patterns of working, rival codes, being more prominent in New Zealand than they were historically, it means that we've had to be more focused on the participant in the way that we think about the game. So we've created lots of new innovations around formats for the sport, for young people in particular. We've worked hard at creating, safer environments because it is a physical sport. So different formats that are maybe have less contact involved in them, and those have been hugely successful in our communities, which we're really proud of. The other thing that we're proud of is probably the growth of inclusion and diversity around our game. Like especially in the women's game, we've had massive growth in the women and girls space and a huge amount of success. I'm here in the UK at the moment, following our Black Ferns playing in the World Cup, and the growth of the brand of the Black Ferns, our women's 15s team and our women's sevens team has been something that we're extremely proud of. And more young girls playing at school level and junior club level has been something we're extremely proud of.
Incredible. And how are you um, build? So now we've discussed the commercial aspects, building the community, but when and selling the vision. But when you're developing the youth, what is the culture and the most important things that you focus on when developing talent that will represent the national team at the highest level one day, from the grassroots to prepare them to perform at the highest level for the All Blacks.
Yeah. Well, we in New Zealand, our stakeholder group, referred to as what we call provincial unions. We have 26 provincial unions around the country, and they are effectively our delivery arm in the community game. So we support them with investment that they in turn use to go out and engage with as many young people to play the game as possible. And in their systems, they lead the work that goes on in schools and junior clubs to grow the athletes. We don't become directly involved with the athlete until they probably reach 17 or 18 years old. And we work through like I say, our stakeholder group until they're at that age. And our sport is very much a late development sport. It's not an early specialisation sport like a lot of sports around the world where you hear about young talent being signed at, say, maybe 10 to 12 years old. It's just rugby is a later development sport. So we tend to become involved then. And we have really strong talent identification systems right around our country and really strong high performance networks that allow us to take the best of that talent and work with them into our national teams. So, as part of that, we're obviously interested in the talent of the athletes and their physical, conditioning and prowess. But I think the key thing that we focus on is really their character and values. They are the things that really set athletes apart. Their mindset, the strength of the character, their resilience, their ability to lead under pressure are things that we work really hard on with our athletes at a young age. Uh, and have been critical in our success over the years, building, the right mindset and the right leadership capability to be successful. So, from the age of 17 to 18 through, that's where we really take over and look to build the athletes in partnership with our stakeholders and clubs.
And an advice that you would share with young professionals, say in their mid 20s, early 30s, who have a big passion for sport, for rugby. They've been rugby players. They've played at a high level, but weren't able to make it to the professional level. Say it was because they were pursuing their studies, or they chose to pursue a job which had pretty high income, and but they still have this passion for the sport of rugby, and they don't just want to live it as fans. What would you suggest is the most valuable advice for them to get involved with the business of rugby, to create value in it? Would it be to like buy a team? Would it be to become a financial officer or a business executive? What would you say is the most valuable advice for these individuals?
Um, Well, I think there are a few things that you need. What stands out for me is you need to have a real passion and love of the game, for any sport that you want to be associated with. At the end of the day, your role involved with sport is to care for it and to leave it in a better place. For when you pass over your role or your involvement in the sport. So, care, passion, and is really really important. the other thing I think is encourage people to be extremely curious. There are many, many ways in which people can engage with the sport of rugby. You mentioned a few there. If people want to get into a role of as an executive or work in administration, that can start as simply by being involved in your community committee on a team with a school or a club, and you learn a lot of the same skills in those forums as in an amateur area than that you need for the professional game. Is just maybe less dollars involved and not the same amount of ability to earn a full-time living, but you actually learn just as much in terms of managing and leading people, working through issues, understanding different stakeholder demands, which are all really important when you have the opportunity to lead a sport or lead an organisation. But you mentioned a few other ways in which you can become involved as an investor or owning a team. They all require those same skills, I think, a deep curiosity to understand the environments really well, and a deep care to take the time to understand what the risks, the benefits, and the challenges might be of coming involved at any level in the sport. So the beauty about the way rugby is growing at the moment around the world is there are so many opportunities for people to engage in the sport at all levels. And so if they have a deep passion to be involved, I don't think it's difficult to become involved. But areas like Asia, North America are opening up. Spain is doing some amazing things in rugby at the moment that we're learning about and are really interested in. France is obviously an amazing market. Africa is booming around rugby. So, no matter where in the world you are, there's always an opportunity to become involved at the game at any level, really.
Amazing. And for the last piece of advice for our audience and listeners, Mark, we've read the book Legacy of excellence in the locker room as well as in the field, how to cultivate leadership and success for a team, the All Blacks being the main example of it around the world. But can you tell us one piece of advice from the book, which also resonates to the how the business side of the All Blacks is conducted, and when making partnerships or looking for investors and even investments yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great question. There are a lot of things that we take from our team environments and apply through the organisation. We often refer to the ability that we want to be able to lead and administer the game in the same way that our players play the game on the field. So, we want to be renowned for that strength of character, integrity, and honesty. I think one ethos in our teams and the All Blacks is doing, the simple things really, really well under a huge amount of pressure, and honing those skills, and being really, really disciplined around the way that you build teams and you build performance, and that is certainly something we work at in New Zealand Rugby in our offices and talk about a lot. So. I think what comes through for us is the values and the behaviours that are really important in any team environment also apply in our work environments. And we call our values the rugby way, and they're the behaviours and the everyday levels of care and excellence that you have to show to really foster the game and help to grow it. So it's probably the values for me and the character and the behaviours that come out of those that are really important for us.
Amazing. So thank you so much, Mark, for your valuable advice. It was an honor to host you on the Sport Businessman podcast today, and we look forward to seeing many successes for the All Blacks going forward and your career as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Edoardo. Great to chat. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.